What's up, everybody? It's the Legend of W here, and welcome to my personal perspective of Final Fantasy 15 and where it stands. Now, I wanted to do this for a long time, but things have been pretty stacked this year with Resident Evil 2, Devil May Cry 5, and Sekiro. Plus, I wanted to wait until episode Arden was released to give my full perspective of Final Fantasy 15, which is the final piece of DLC that we're going to get after 2 years of support, which honestly is incredible for a single player focused game. Some of you might be asking, but what about Dawn of the Future? Well, I'm not taking it into consideration because it's not part of the canon story. Hajime Tabata stated a while back that the purpose of Dawn of the Future was to provide a happy ending. For those unfamiliar with Final Fantasy Versus XIII before it became Final Fantasy 15, the main theme has always been based on a tragedy. Therefore, the ending in Final Fantasy 15 was always meant to have a sad ending. Now, I know that episode Arden was part of Dawn of the Future, but it seems to tie more closely to the canon story in Final Fantasy 15 rather than the rest of the non-canon of Dawn of the Future. So therefore, I won't be talking about the book, even though I spoiled it for myself. But I will consider buying it once it comes out to the US, because, hey, I love Final Fantasy 15. Anyways, let's get started. When Final Fantasy Versus XIII was first introduced on May 8th, 2006, I was, actually still am, very impressed by what the game could have been, all based off of that one trailer. The mysterious and ominous atmosphere really got my attention. As the years went by, other very impressive trailers came out, and I started to believe that this game had something very special, something that would change the industry standard in quality. If you've checked out my Final Fantasy 15 series, it's no surprise that I appreciate and love what Hajime Tabata and his team have made with little time. But it's definitely not the same game that Nomura envisioned. Just by looking at the E3 2013 trailer to the Tokyo Game Show 2014 trailer, there's a pretty dramatic change in my opinion. In the end, I mainly see those who make the serious decisions at Square Enix, the ones responsible for the 10-year development hell that Final Fantasy 15 had to face. It makes me wonder whether Square Enix will make it up to fans of Final Fantasy Versus XIII one day. When Uncovered Final Fantasy 15 was presented on March 30th, 2016, I was very, very excited. One thing that I have asked myself a lot during that time though was, why did they expand the world of Final Fantasy 15 the way they did? I'm not saying that I was disappointed though, quite the opposite actually, but I felt that there was a small chance that things were getting cut to supplement the game experience. Looking back at the movie Kingsglaive, which I enjoyed, but I think the investment behind it would have been better placed for Final Fantasy 15, the game. But I'm not experienced in the game industry, so maybe it's easier to just invest in a movie rather than the rest of the game, maybe. And I guess maybe the anime applies the same way as well. I have no clue. But overall, I was very impressed with the event. I think it was amazing. It was magical at that time for me, and I just couldn't wait to play Final Fantasy 15. When I first started the game, which you can check out the playlist for the full experience, I really enjoyed the early beginning with the bros going on a road trip. I was a bit surprised how lighthearted it felt in comparison to the dark tone that I was more familiar with, but I enjoyed it regardless. The open world looked beautiful and mysterious, which I really liked, but I wish that there was more to it, as sometimes the world felt a little empty. I do recognize that this may have been a limitation to the Luminous engine and the PS4, since the game was, barely able to run at a smooth 30 frames per second. But then again, these guys are on a road trip, so I guess it would make sense. The story in the game did show a darker contrast, which made me feel that maybe some part of Versus was still intact. Kingsglaive, for example, showed the invasion of Insomnia, King Regis' death, and Nyx's sacrifice. In Final Fantasy XV, it was very tough for Noctis when he received the bad news and having to endure Luna's death. Plus, witnessing how the world sunk into darkness after being in the crystal for a decade. Let's not forget that our boy Ignis going blind in the second half of the game, which I don't know about you, but to me that was really sad to see. Now, I know many of you have different views of how the story was presented. Personally, I didn't find it bad, as I enjoyed the mystery in the game. I don't always have to have the tiniest details explained if the mystery was done on purpose. I will agree though that seeing what happened to the Niflheim Empire should have been part of the game. Lazy writing? Maybe. This all just goes back to what I believe, that the higher ups at Square Enix are responsible for the development hell of Final Fantasy XV. Before the Royal Edition update, going into Insomnia for the very first time was an amazing experience for me. The dark, eerily silent, and hollow atmosphere showed me this sense of despair and death lurking in every corner, and it just felt right for some reason to me. I felt it had a bigger impact than the epic Royal Edition version. Maybe it's less Final Fantasy, but I truly appreciate how it was done originally. The ending was pretty controversial for fans and newcomers. There have been many who had wished for a happy ending, and I get it. We all love the bros and would love to see everybody happy. But as I said earlier in this video, the theme of Final Fantasy XV, like Versus, was based on a tragedy. I understand newcomers who didn't know much about Versus, but I can't say the same for longtime Final Fantasy fans. The ending was sad, but at the same time happy, as Noctis and Luna were able to be together in the afterlife. So to me, their love was so strong and pure that even death can't set them apart. I know many of you have different views about how a love story should be, and you don't see that with Luna and Noctis. But honestly, I feel that it's subjective. Especially when you look at other cultures, you start to realize that your view isn't the world's view, and it's better to think outside of the box. To me, Luna and Noctis represent true love even when separated miles away. The book that they have shared messages with for a long time holds that sentimental value. It's the love that they understand and appreciate. When I look at it that way, their long distance relationship is just as strong as his friendship with his bros, regardless of who has interacted more with who. I will dare to say that Noctis and Luna's love story is actually a bit more interesting than any of the other love stories in the Final Fantasy franchise. Fight me. I honestly didn't expect there to be so much support for the game after it was released. I really thought that the season pass was going to be it, with episode Ignis being my favorite, of course. Square Enix did add more to the game with the addition of multiplayer expansion Comrades, which wasn't bad, but I wished it was designed a bit better because I felt that it was a bit boring at times. Especially that I couldn't find anybody to team up with. It was kind of a bit rough for me. I might go back into it later since I have the standalone version installed, so hopefully more people will play. The added cutscenes to the main story Gladio, Ignis, and Prompto as playable characters definitely made the game much better. The Royal Edition being the last big update definitely nailed that Final Fantasy experience that I think many have wanted and appreciate. I enjoyed the Mugo Chocobo Carnival as well as the collaborations, and I do understand why an event like the Assassin's Creed Festival would not come back due to licensing, but I still don't really get how the Carnival can't be accessed at any time. It's weird to see that. I just don't get it. Episode Arden being the final piece of DLC for Final Fantasy 15 was a great way to end those 2 years of support. Before the DLC, the prologue anime showed us a noble man who turned into possibly one of the best Final Fantasy antagonists and arguably one of the best antagonists in video game history. I honestly was very glad that Episode Arden was still being developed, regardless of the very bad news that we received in that 2-year anniversary live stream, keeping the tragic thing going, huh, Square Enix? Final Fantasy 15 is what I would describe it as: a beautiful, unorganized masterpiece, and one of my favorite games this gen. I truly feel that it could have been far better if Tabata and his team had a lot more time to really make the experience better, but unfortunately that just wasn't the case. Perhaps with more time, the investment made for the movie, the animes, and the collabs might have transferred to the game instead, which probably would have gotten a better product out of it. But despite that, I had a blast playing as the bros and experiencing the story, the characters, and most of all, that incredible, masterful soundtrack. It's the absolute best soundtrack that I have heard in a very long time. If Final Fantasy 15 remained as a trilogy as it has been reported in the past, I think we would definitely have seen something even more amazing. That's why all the love that I have for Final Fantasy 15 has only increased my desire for Versus more than ever before. Like a million times more now. To this day, I still see a far bigger potential in Versus after what I've experienced in Final Fantasy 15. If I didn't notice the Versus community out there, I probably would still think that I'm the only one who wanted this. So I'm very happy to know that there are still many who want Versus to exist. I think it's safe to say that Final Fantasy 15 has made a huge impact on Square Enix. With all these collabs in and out of the game, they certainly want to profit a lot. And this is why I believe that this won't be the first and last time that we will see Noctis in a Final Fantasy, in a main Final Fantasy game. No, not by a long shot. I truly feel that Square Enix is planning something right now, at this moment, and they're very quiet about it, of course. I know that, you know, Final Fantasy VII Remake is one of their bigger projects right now, but I still feel that they're hiding something. To me, they've been a bit quiet when it comes to Final Fantasy and the subject of Final Fantasy. So who knows? Maybe during the PlayStation 5 reveal, we might see Versus. Maybe. I hope, at least. I hope. We'll have to see. I'm pretty sure that Square Enix knows very, very well that Versus fans want this. And if anybody at Square Enix is watching this video right now, I ask you, as a huge fan of Versus from 2006, to please consider bringing the Versus epic back to the grand stage. Let Tetsuya Nomura create the game that I believe he has long wished for. Many Versus fans want this. Bring that fantasy into reality. And with that is my personal view of Final Fantasy 15. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know down in the comment section below what you think about my perspective, and I would like to know about your opinion as well on Final Fantasy 15 as a whole. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up, and of course make sure to subscribe so that way you know when I upload next time. I usually do Let's Plays, but if you'd like to see more videos like this, please let me know down in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, once again, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.